At least for me personally, I wasn't as invested in that stuff.
We're gonna have words. Hi, this is Randall here with No Market Media.
And I'm Matt. Today, Randall and I are taking a look at a movie that came out in 1998 and is a sequel to a movie we just reviewed for St. Patrick's Day for some reason.
Seriously, go look it up.
Mm-hmm. Today, we're reviewing U.S. Marshals. It stars Tommy Lee Jones, Wesley Snipes, Robert Downey Jr., and Joe Pantoliano. It's directed by Stuart Baird, who's also known for Executive Decision and Star Trek Nemesis, but is best known as an editor for movies that include Superman, Lethal Weapon, Demolition Man, and Skyfall. But before we go any further, if you like this review, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Also be sure to hit subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications on our latest videos.
Seriously, hit that thumbs up button. I'm telling you. The algorithm loves it! It really does. U.S. Marshals is the follow-up to the ever-popular film The Fugitive, and this time finds seasoned U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard and his team tasked with finding a different fugitive who is trying to prove he is not the cold-blooded murderer he's being made out to be. This movie had about a $45 million budget, but this time only rang in about $102 million at the box office. Not mincing words here, critics pretty much hated it, and audiences only gave it slightly average scores.
Alright, so I think U.S. Marshals is a pretty good movie. And, I actually like that this one focuses on, the U.S. Marshals. I actually enjoyed that part of this movie quite a bit. The part of the movie I guess I didn't enjoy quite as much as a lot of the espionage stuff. At least for me personally, I wasn't as invested in that stuff.
We're gonna have words.
I thought we don't take our work personally.
We don't. I do.
I found the biggest thing about this one, and it's not like we're trying to strictly compare The Fugitive to U.S. Marshals, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's what critics of the day did.
Mm-hmm.
Bad critics. But I found that the storytelling and the characters were actually a lot tighter in this one.
Mm.
The way this was edited was a lot better done in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Again, looking back at the director, that's not a surprise. Looking at the films he's edited. He's pretty good at this, actually. But I can see how critics at the time definitely saw this as too derivative of The Fugitive. They're like, oh, what are the chances the same thing happens to the same guy? And I'm thinking, yeah, Die Hard's an entire franchise. What are you guys complaining about? I mean, granted, you guys dislike Die Hard 2, which you're wrong about too, critics.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a very fun movie to watch. And I think that's a disservice. Watching through this, I found this one more enjoyable to watch than The Fugitive. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a better film, but it's just sit down, watch the movie. This one's just easier to watch.
Me, I would just say that this is a different movie. So kind of really, they take some beats or whatever that are similar, but I think a big part is this movie has a different approach to the thing, that we are looking more at the U.S. Marshals and stuff than this Fugitive or whatever that's going off. At least that's what I take. So me, I think it's kind of hard to really do the comparison and stuff. But granted, that's what people are going to do because The Fugitive was such a big movie, and this is a sequel or a spin-off of that movie.
Trying to make their own franchise. All right, so this is where we're going to have to deviate just a tad bit here. I love the espionage storyline. In fact, this could have been a Jack Ryan film starring Harrison Ford, except for he's not in this at all.
Yep.
But I'm this is a really interesting plot point for me, where it's our fugitive, in this case Wesley Snipes' character, he's on the run being framed for murders that he did. He killed those guys.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trying to say he didn't, but he's trying to say he didn't do them in cold blood. He didn't just murder them. There's a reason behind it. And as that unfolds and you find out, okay, what's with this Robert Downey Jr., what's with this, thing with the U.S. government and the G-men, all of that stuff, you might think maybe it's a little out of its league. All right, this is... it's more than it needs to be, but I'm just like, nope, I'm okay with it. I think it's fun to watch.
Me, I'm going to differ a bit on, and sorry, some of this is story and characters I think kind of overlap for me quite a bit in this one. So me, what I enjoyed most about the story, I did like the U.S. Marshals, and I did like this group of people that we have together and that we're showing like their relationship. There's like something there. They actually care for each other a bit or have some disagreements with each other in this movie.
Yeah.
And I like this stuff. And I like them like going in and investigating different stuff. And I really think a lot of the stuff that's brought to light is brought to light through the U.S. Marshals in this movie. Now, for me, at the part, I honestly think the espionage stuff, I think sometimes we're put in the dark a little bit too much for me personally to really like latch on. Like, I know stuff that's going on because I've seen this movie a few times, but for me, it's kind of like our main character, you know, or I'd say our secondary main character, like Wesley Snipes. I don't know that I can really trust this guy, you know, to start off a little bit.
I know, but that's the point.
That is the point of the movie. But for me, it's kind of like to have, if you're driving a little bit, to me, I'm just kind of like, I don't know that I really, you know, care about that as much to like really latch on.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I'm going to talk about it in characters a little bit. Like,
that's what I say too. Overlap a little bit for me with the story and the characters.
I don't know. I personally think, you know, as the story and the espionage and the cover-up all you know, get unfolded, they're unfolding for the audience the same way they're unfolding for the character, you know, the U.S. Marshals.
You're right.
Where it's like, hey, you know, they said they found his fingerprints at the scene, but like they do a zoom in and they're like, all right, he's wearing gloves, so that means they must have already had his fingerprints.
Yep.
Like, where else would they get them from, kind of thing. So I think that all ties in well, honestly. And I'm just a sucker for a good espionage, you know, movie. Some of All Fears is a good Jack Ryan movie. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah, I've thought Some of All Fears was good too.
I'm a sucker for espionage, but it's good.
We may have to do that in the future.
Completely unrelated to U.S. Marshals.
Alright, so for me, you know, kind of going with The Fugitive, Tommy Lee Jones to me is still my favorite in this one. Gerard, I think, is pretty good character in this. We see a lot more, I guess, of his personality and, you know, kind of like his drives and, you know, a bit more personality in this movie. Some of the stuff that he does, I don't quite agree with the character and stuff. If this is the same character in The Fugitive, I mean, it is. It's Sam Gerard, but is it? Sometimes I kind of question. Wesley Snipes, I think, does a good job portraying this, you know, this former Secret Service agent or whatever who's on the run kind of thing and trying to prove and try to find that out. Me personally, though, like I said, I didn't really fall in love with his character really to start off. I don't put that on Wesley Snipes, but for me, like I said, not knowing really to trust him or what the situation was, that, granted, you know, for this movie, kind of alienated the character a little bit for me, at least for the first half of the movie.
So for my character bit, the thing that you kind of alluded to a little bit earlier was the team. The team's better.
Yep.
The group of characters overall is better than what we had seen before.
Yep.
You start seeing their interpersonal weavings. You start seeing that Joe's character, which is Cosmo, is actually, you know, good friends. And then you see, unfortunately, one of the younger, you know, deputies is gunned down in cold blood, actually.
Yep.
You know, by Robert Downey Jr. Like that stuff. All those characters are way elevated in comparison to The Fugitive.
Yep.
But I'm gonna disagree again. Now, I think that Wesley Snipes' character being maybe not trustworthy. Maybe he did do something. You know, and then you find out, well, no, he did actually kill those people. Okay, but why did he kill them? And then, as Tommy Lee Jones' character points out, he's like, why is it that you keep saying that he's a cold-blooded killer, but he hasn't left us any bodies? He hasn't killed anyone, and he's had lots of time to do that. Like, maybe the truck driver he could have killed, or maybe, you know, it's like he just keeps leaving people alive. So why, you know, what's going on here? I think that's all part and parcel of the story.
Yep. One thing I'll say, too, about, like, Tommy Lee Jones, like, some of the things I didn't like, it's almost like Tommy Lee Jones learns that stuff and then kind of like forgets that stuff later on in the movie to kind of like build stuff up. It's kind of stuff like this character that we've built and everything. And then he goes on and he does stuff that I don't think really flows with that character that we've built.
At the time, if you're thinking about like after the young guy's death, it's like he's just mad.
He's just mad.
He's just a character who's upset, basically. And yeah, he's letting go of the facts of the case of he hasn't killed anyone else. Why would he? And so maybe you can say, well, this is a pretty logical thinking character. Why didn't he already come to that conclusion?
Yep.
Like, I don't believe this person that I've just met like a week ago or however long, not very long, versus the evidence.
Right.
Maybe that would have been more interesting to see on screen. Like that, this does not track. This is not his MO.
Yep.
But he's just angry.
He is angry. He's overcome by that emotion. But another character to talk about that goes on that is that Robert Downey Jr.'s character. I think his character is okay. I think it's a pretty good movie. It makes sense why he'd want to be close to this investigation and everything, because he's the mole, or whatever. He's the one that's trading secrets
actually
and
trading
stuff.
Secrets to China.
So he's the one that wanted to be close to this and make sure that he can, close off anything that would kind of tie him or out him as a mole. That stuff makes sense. Some of the things that are weird about his character, and I'll go one scene when we're looking over the surveillance tapes of like the killings and stuff, and Robert Downey Jr.'s characters, they're eating his noodles and stuff. Granted, they're busy people, finding
Robert
times.
Downey Jr.
Yeah, it's actually Robert Downey Jr. Granted, with their job and stuff, trying to hunt down fugitive, who knows when you have time to eat? You eat when you can eat. But if we're reviewing a video that shows your two friends that you pointed out earlier just got gunned down in, I doubt you'd be eating food while watching that part.
Robert Downey Jr.'s character makes sense, for all the reasons that you said.
Yep.
But it's weird because this is still fairly young. He's up and coming, and at this point, probably actually already coming into his bouts with rehab and everything, getting around that time. And I can't help but see he's playing the Tony Stark.
Yes.
Like in his movements and in his snippy comeback, like that's the role he's playing.
Yep.
Even though it's not Tony Stark, obviously.
Right.
Where in comparison to like what you see Robert Downey Jr. do now, he's actually much more like wide of an actor. Like what he did to Sherlock Holmes is not the same.
Right.
His character makes perfect sense in the context of the story, but like the actor choice, at the time it probably didn't matter. At the time you're just like, yeah, that's a good representation. Retrospectively, you're like, nah, he's just doing Tony Stark. So that was a little off-putting.
Yeah, I would totally agree on that one.
But that's not his fault. That's our fault.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
The other big character, at least in my mind, Wesley Snipes' character.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned this, and I was like, I'm going to come back to it. Is you don't necessarily trust him. That's fine. He's not as sympathetic a character as like you had in the previous one with Dr. Kimball.
Yep.
So you do want to know whether or not like he did it and whether or not he is like a cold-blooded killer and he kind of is from some perspective, but not in this instance, basically. I like the way that his character is portrayed. I think Wesley Snipes did a really good job not being as like easy to like. You didn't like it, but I think that's better for this role.
Well, it's the other thing too, because you kind of, I don't know, I guess this movie doesn't focus necessarily on you latching on like him and his girlfriend kind of thing. Because if you don't really trust his character, then you're kind of like, well, is she just getting strung along here and being used kind of thing? So another thing is kind of, paints Wesley Snipes things like, man, is he like really putting her in harm's way? Like he is involving her and stuff, but even though he's saying like, oh, I wouldn't be involving you if I had no choice. But me as a viewer, I'm kind of like, whoa, kind of thing. Like what's happening here?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right, so this one is actually an action thriller movie.
Yep.
We had previously said in our last review of The Fugitive, which you should definitely watch if you haven't watched it already, that, it was maybe more concentrated on the murder mystery aspects. Yep. This one has, like, the cover-up is central to everything. But it is an action film. Like, there's lots of good action sets, and I will go out of my way to say and get on my soapbox, because I'm short. But anyway, soapboxing about practical effects. The movie stands up well as an action film from the 90s because it doesn't dive into a whole bunch of CGI. It's like, nope, real plane, real, miniatures or bigatures and stuff like that.
Yep.
Cranes, like real stuff.
Yep.
Is used in this film, and that's aged well as an action film, in my opinion.
I think too, what also tends to lead this to an action film is the fact that our fugitive is, former like Secret Service or whatever it is, government,
some spook,
some kind of spook or whatever. It kind of tends to lead to that because we can have more of these more dynamic, scenes stuff, especially like our bad guys. We don't just have like a retired cop. We actually have like Chinese, agents as well too, trying to take people out. So yes, I agree. There's all that more action in this film, and it kind of goes into that thriller part too. We have the plane crash, which is similar to like kind of like our bus crash or whatever from our other movie, but we also have like Tommy Lee Jones, and Wesley Snipes like punching it out while hanging on to this thing that's being like lowered into the grain tank and stuff. So we really do have that more action thriller part to this movie.
Definitely.
All right, so I guess what I didn't see coming is what I was talking about before, is what I was a little bit disappointed about. Not you as much, but for me is my kind of disconnect with Wesley Snipes' character a little bit. Like I said, I think Wesley Snipes does an excellent job doing it, and that is what the movie's calling for. But to me, I don't really warm up to this character until like midway, or even like later maybe than midway for this movie. So I guess that's really what I didn't see coming. I remember watching this movie, and I like Wesley Snipes and stuff, so I normally go into it. But like watching it now and going back to it, it's kind of like really like, hey, I really don't settle into this character until later. So I guess that's kind of what I didn't see coming watching it again.
So this is maybe fair, maybe not fair. There's not a lot about the movie that I didn't see coming. I've seen it a lot, and there's like even rewatching it, I wasn't super surprised by anything at all. One thing I was surprised by was that I came out of this and I said, you know what? This is a better movie than The Fugitive. That's probably a pretty unpopular opinion. But like I enjoy watching this film more, honestly. I think the characters are better well done. I think the story's well done. I think it's better shot. I think the way that they portray some of this like storyline with the espionage, and it's a really interesting, realistic story of, what if we did have a mole in the government who is feeding China information? What would it be on? And they mentioned several times like, hey, air defenses for South Korea and Taiwan, stuff like that. Like that's all realistic stuff. I came out of it thinking, this is so much more well put together and told than The Fugitive. And I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I would go on and say, like we were saying too, like I think different things when, comparing to The Fugitive. Some things in this I like better, and I guess some things of The Fugitive I like better. But yes, it's, we were talking about Fugitive, how, would we like really recommend people watch it today? And I kind of said, well, there's other movies that came later that kind of expanded on it.
Yeah.
This is a movie that's kind of like that. I think this movie, granted it came out, 5 years after The Fugitive, does feel a bit more like other, like, the more recent films that are looking at this kind of thing. Kind of with, like, the espionage stuff and also, like, the investigation. Like, hey, can we really trust all the agencies and stuff that we're working with and stuff and trying to figure this out?
Yeah, but you know what? I didn't even think about it until right now. You couldn't make this movie today.
Yep.
Heaven forbid that the Chinese be bad guys in any way. In any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Gotta cater to that audience. So, here's my thing. If you take The Fugitive and U.S. Marshals and watch them back to back like we did, you're kind of thinking to yourself, all right, they're obviously derivative of each other. But if you take these movies and you separate them and you just say, they're not the same character. Just say they're not.
Yep.
Just pretend for a moment. I think U.S. Marshals is a better film than The Fugitive. And I would, unlike my recommendation for The Fugitive, where I'm like, I don't know, maybe go watch it and see how you like it. I would say, no, go ahead, go watch U.S. Marshals. It's better than they gave it credit for at the time. Absolutely. If you're only comparing it to The Fugitive, that's not fair. As a movie by itself, it's actually pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I would say I'm conflicted because At one point, I think I probably do enjoy The Fugitive more, but that part of it is the nostalgia. But at the same time, too, I agree with you. If you separate these movies, and if there's a movie I would recommend people watch, I would probably recommend that people watch U.S. Marshals and stuff. So, one point I 100% agree with you. I think these movies are good separate. Separate The Fugitive from the U.S. Marshals, and don't watch this as hey, we're watching a sequel of The Fugitive and stuff.
It's the way I look at it is it's back to Dante's Peak and Volcano, or Armageddon and Deep Impact. If you look at the U.S. Marshals and The Fugitive as two movies telling similar stories, you can enjoy both.
Yeah.
Deep Impact's got things I like.
Yep.
Armageddon's got things I like.
Yep.
Fugitive's got things I like. U.S. Marshals has got things I like. If you take away the sequel connection, this is a much stronger film. And I just don't think that they gave it that credit at the time. They were just it's a sequel to The Fugitive and it's not as good. And I'm like...
Doesn't meet our expectations of what The Fugitive was for this movie.
Well, I'm sorry. Look at it as its own movie.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Well, Randall and I, we want to know what you guys think about U.S. Marshals. Are we off the mark, or are we hitting on something that also hits on a nerve of yours?
I don't think that this guy misses.
I don't think he does either. Let us know in the comments down below. Also, be sure to go to our YouTube page to check out some of our other reviews. We have other flashback movie reviews. Take a look at new movies, TV shows, and we have deeper dive discussions.
And also, don't forget to go check us out over on Facebook. If you haven't already, we have a page there where we are posting the day before what happens next on YouTube. But if you don't have Facebook, don't worry about it. Just put us on your schedule. New videos every Monday and Thursday. For now, I'm Randall here with No Market Media. I'll see everyone next time.
And I'm Matt. Have a good day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.